guys, I know I've already posted my Batman v Superman review, and while I stand by it, and I definitely enjoyed filming it with my boyfriend, I wanted to take this minute to talk about the movie in a smaller way because there's been a little bit of conversation going on about the critics and this bias that people are saying that critics and audiences in general and people in general have against DC movies in favor to Marvel films. I would like to say that I think that is a bullshit excuse. While I'm sure there are fanboys out there that inherently just want to hate DC because they're Marvel fanboys, that's a very small number of people in my opinion. The movie, at least the movie that I saw, was not a good one. It was poorly written, poorly paced, did not understand the characters very well, at least to me, and I'll get into that later on. But I would say that the idea that Marvel is somehow in control of what the critics think of this movie is ludicrous. I believe that the critics are being honest, and honestly, not every Marvel movie is great. Not every Marvel movie is good. I still haven't seen Ant-Man because I frankly don't give a fuck. I have no desire to see Ant-Man. I don't need to see Ant-Man. Ant-Man means nothing to me, so I'm not going to spend my money on it. I saw Iron Man because I loved Robert Downey Jr. and I kept going with the franchise because they got me interested in characters that I had never been interested in before. Before the Marvel Universe took off, only in terms of cinematic, only cared about the X-Men and Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Deadpool. Everyone else was kind of like whatever. And so those characters to me are so much more malleable because unless you were really into comics and into those things, you didn't really know who Iron Man was. You didn't really know or care what Thor was because of his stupid helmet. There are things about the Marvel Universe that allow it to be more malleable than the DC Universe. The DC Universe is built on these icons of characters. And Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman as well are some of the most important symbols that we have in terms of characters that you can recognize anywhere in meaning things about American literature. And I count graphic novels as literature. I think that we all should at this point, considering how many amazing pieces of work have become something that we should read. I mean, no one can say that Watchmen is not great. No one can say that The Dark Knight Rises does not have huge literary value, whether you like it or not. And I certainly do not enjoy that comic the way other people do. And so I think that the issue is not about Marvel versus DC. It is what Batman and Superman mean to audiences that the Marvel characters simply do not. I think for a lot of people who saw the movie, there was a split between people who love the ideas of these characters, the fights, the action, the feeling like you're reading a comic book, that sort of appeal, that like that, and can enjoy that. Like my boyfriend is one of those people. As he said, he enjoyed the movie. Whereas there are other people who care about the characters and what they mean and what they have come to mean over years of following them throughout different mediums, throughout different comic books, and a lot of them were disappointed in that movie because of how they felt it represented those characters. For me, my problem with the many writing problems there were, is how I personally felt they fundamentally did not understand and have not understood A, Clark Kent as Superman, and B, Bruce Wayne as Batman. And I'll start with Superman because Superman is not a character that I always used to enjoy. And I think it's hard to sort of, unless you were always reading Superman comic books and reading good Superman comic books, to have been exposed to the great stuff that Superman could do. When I was growing up, and I think for everyone under the age of 30, even in your 40s, when you were growing up and when you were coming up, the Christopher Reeve movie was good, and so was Superman 2, but then the Superman movies started getting bad. The Tim Burton Batman and the Dark Knight Rises comic pushed Batman into this level of brilliance and this level of iconography that had never existed before. They helped revolutionize these characters. And for the past 30 or so years, the best superhero movies that came out of DC were all Batman products. Batman the Animated Series was a bigger success than Superman the Animated Series. Batman was pretty much pushed as a leader of the Justice League in the Justice League Animated Series. in both worlds, even though he is not. And Batman became the figurehead of the DC franchise, which is why they can't kill him off, why he can rarely evolve, and why, you know, all the Robins will always be children, and Bruce Wayne will always be 30 when he should be much older than that. And I think that for me, what made me realize how great Superman was when I finally started watching Superman the Animated Series. What really got to me during those episodes was seeing the destruction of Krypton. And it got to me because there was a moment when I was watching it and I realized Superman is all alone. He is the only one left of his kind, and there is no one who he can relate to on a biological level of who he is, and that difference carries out throughout his life whether he wants it to or not. And I think what a lot of people misunderstand about Clark Kent is making him seem like he is some God being, some Jesus figure, and he's not. This is why I say he's a Moses figure. He is a savior, yes, but a savior of men made by men. Superman is who he is, not because he's Kryptonian, not because of his biology. He is who he is because of the Kents, because of growing up in these tight-knit family communities, because of seeing and reflecting the goodness in humanity that he was exposed to in being adopted, in being cared for, and constantly in the face of adversity remembering those things and being exposed to those things, which is why certain things like the death of Lois Lane and killing off people who keep him anchored to those important parts of the humanity are things that make him turn dark, and things like injustice and those kind of things, because he is fundamentally grounded in those goodness in people. He believes in people. He doesn't think he's above us. He wants to be one of us more than anything. And I think you understand that. It was an episode of Justice League and a comic book issue called The Man Who Has Everything. And it's Superman's birthday, and he's given this parasite by one of these villains, I forget the name, and it latches onto him, and you get to see that what Superman, Kal-El, wants more than anything is to be a normal person on Krypton. He wants to be a normal person, to have a normal family, to have a child, to raise a family, to feel safe, to have all of those things, and he wants that more than anything. Anything in this world. He wants to be a normal person. And he can't have that. And he carries that with him in everything that he does, but he does not feel anger or that bitterness. He wants it, yes. And he keeps that longing submerged because he focuses on what's important. And I think one thing that I think about, and I've just thought about often, is that another part of the reason why Clark feels the need to be Superman is because he feels like by doing that, he's allowing Krypton to live on in his memory. If he can make Krypton and Kryptonians and Superman and the House of El all mean something good on this world, then he is somehow allowing his people, his race, to live on here. He is being always the best of the best. That, I guess if you're thinking about it in like minority terms, like that talented 10th, he has to be exemplary, not just because he is powerful, but because of where he comes from. He wants to be cared for by people because he wants us to trust him, and he wants to carry on the legacy of his family. And that is all part of who he is. And I think that what's important to show about Clark are those normalities, to show that despite everything, all Clark wants to be is a normal person, and that he is a normal person overall. His powers, of course, make him different biologically, but he has a normal job. He has a normal family. He has, he pays taxes. He probably stays on the DMV. He does normal people things. Overall, he's an average, cornbread, Smallville guy, and that's what makes it great, is that overall, Superman's greatest strength is his humanity, and we gave it to him. So why people always want to take it away in these movies and make him this this brooding, angsty, unsmiling figure is just so sad, because how can you root for someone who's supposed to represent hope and peace and kindness and good, and you don't have him be at least happy? That's not who Superman is, and that's not who Superman is to me. And maybe that is a fangirl perspective, but this is a character that's been around for decades. Superman is bigger than all of us. He is older than most of all of us. He is someone with a history all of his own. And to ignore that because you think you can do something better and it's not, and it's only appealing to people who love the concept of Batman. And I say the concept of Batman because they want Batman to be this James Bond, playboy character without caring about any of his psychological complexities. I mean, yes, all of these things are about wish fulfillment, but what the comic book genre has done as it's grown and evolved is make these people into fully well-rounded, fleshed out characters. And to ignore that because you want gadgets and mystery and sex, like, that's not doing any service to these characters. I think with Bruce Wayne especially, what's so important to understand is that we show the death of his parents over and over and over again, but are we really holding on to what that actually means for him as a character? Why he sleeps around is not just because he has to maintain a playboy image. It is also because he doesn't want to get attached to anybody because the people around him die. The reason why he adopts Robins and orphans is because he's trying to save them the way he could not be saved. He wants to give them peace that he could not have. He wants to give them a purpose to make them healthier human beings than he is. He wants the Robins, he wants Tim and Dick and even Jason to be better people than him by giving them what he could not have, is to give them someone at that young age a focus for all that anger and something so it doesn't consume them. That's what he does. He gives all of this love in the best way he can because he is a flawed person to these kids. And that is often just completely axed out. The Robins are ignored because they're seen as superfluous. But they give Bruce Wayne his depth. His relationships with women give him that depth. His relationship with Alfred give him that depth. And all of that depth is just being further chilled away so that you can just have this angry, mean, brooding person. And that's not all of what Batman is. That anger, that rage is there, but it is built upon something, and it means something. It's not just mindless anger. And when you reduce it to just mindless anger, it's not entertaining. It gives you no satisfaction. And even I, who am not a big Nolan fan, at least he understood the pathos of the character on some level. He understood the importance of having a good Bruce Wayne. And that's the reality of the thing. Bruce Wayne is Batman. If you're talking about Terry McGinnis, if you're talking about, taking on the mantle, then you have a different psychology behind that character. But since we are stuck with Bruce Wayne as Batman for the foreseeable future, then you have to understand Bruce Wayne. If you enjoyed this movie and you like it and you feel it's being unjustly vilified, I understand that. There are plenty of movies that I totally enjoy and think that critics have totally not been fair about. I mean, AV Club gave straight out of Compton a D or a C plus or something, and that movie is fucking amazing. I don't give a shit what anyone says. I love Batman and I love Superman. I want their movies to be good, and I need to root for them because these are characters that I've followed for most of my life. I have an idea of who they should be. We all do. And unfortunately, even if you think you can improve upon the concept, 9 out of 10 times you're not. And what you're doing is just missing what makes that character special. And I think that the only thing I'll compare it to that's Marvel related is the Captain America scene in the first Captain America movie where you have Steve Rogers fall on a grenade to help save his fellow soldiers. That scene makes you root for him. Even if and the rest of the movie is not amazing. It is poorly paced. There's a lot of problems with the writing. It is all set up for at the latter half, but you love Steve Rogers and you will follow him. And that means something in these movies because these movies are not fabulous, but they have good characters that you care about. And that's the difference. The characters in Batman v Superman were not characters that were likable and that you could enjoy. And it's a superhero movie and you need that more than anything else. And so for me, as much as I love Batman and Superman, I'm not going to root for them just because. This movie has to earn it, and it did not earn it. At least not to me.